And welcome to another edition of the All Angels podcast. I am Dan Garcia. My special guest is Brett Chaney from the Locked On Astros podcast. Brett, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. That was a pretty live intro there.
Yeah, sometimes you get kind of bored during the whole COVID thing. You got to throw a couple of things together just to pass the time, and that's kind of how it worked. Obviously we are previewing the AL West. Last week we talked a little bit Oakland A's. This week, obviously, we have you on to talk about the Houston Astros. So let's get to it. Obviously, Astros, the season probably didn't go as well as they wanted to, but they did turn it on in the postseason. Losing in the ALCS and in a Game 7 to the Rays. What, in your opinion, was the difference? Was there something that just wasn't clicking in the regular season that they were able to fix in the postseason?
It was odd. I think the regular season, you had a lot of younger guys that should have not been above AA pitching. You just had this weird dichotomy of things just weren't really going great. Like they would hit, then their pitching would fall apart. Or in the beginning, their pitching was great and their hitting wasn't there. And so we were the benefactors of the expanded playoffs.
Right.
And us, the Brewers, both made it under 500. But I think once we got to the postseason, because of our track record in recent years, going back to 2015, we have I mean, you got to remember in 2015, we were one game away from taking the Royals out and going to the ALCS in 2015. And so this team has got a lot of veterans, and we still had Springer. And so those guys knew. And when everybody counts you out, that's a perfect setup for Houston, because when our backs are against the wall, we fight like dogs, and we're blue collar. And I know we have the stand of 2017 that will stay with us for a long time, but we like to feel like we earn everything we get, and that's just kind of the Houston way.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about too. Going into 2020 season, obviously in the original spring training, there was a lot of talk about how the fans were going to react when they get to these different ballparks and stuff like that. Did you see it as a benefit, the fact that there wasn't any fans in the ballpark and the players didn't necessarily have to worry about what they're hearing or what they're seeing? They can just focus on the task at hand?
Yeah, I think that was a huge benefit for them. I think that actually kind of upset opposing fan bases more. And it wasn't like, hey, we can't go to the baseball games. We're like, dang it, we were gonna go. Just like let them have it. We were gonna go.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I get it. I've never been anyone that has defended what they did, because cheating is cheating. Is wrong is wrong. But at the end of the day, I don't think the Astros invented the cheating scandal. I don't think they invented doing things kind of little sly under the radar. I think the Astros did something that they assumed other people were doing, so they were trying to stay ahead of the curve. That doesn't make it right. But to get back to your original point, yes, it was a blessing for our team to not have that. We thought Altuve was dealing with issues in the playoffs and the season because maybe he was bothered by all the accusations, but we just recently found out he was dealing with a personal loss that he didn't even tell the team about. And so he had some issues there mentally that he was working through. I think it helped them. Bregman, Correa, all those guys take things very personally because they put a lot of hard work into the craft.
Yeah, and that was one of the things too. You kind of mentioned it going into the season. You're hearing stories about, even, obviously Dodger, where we are located in Southern California, you had to think about the Dodger fans going to Anaheim just because it was supposed to be opening day and stuff like that. Now, obviously going into 2021, has, in your eyes, has that died down at all? Or do you think this is something the players kind of have to rev up and kind of get ready for now that more stadiums are opening back up?
Well, I think we are going to have to deal with it. And I think it's something that the Houston Astros are going to expect. But what you have to realize is there's fewer and fewer guys on this team that were on that 2017 team. So if you're an opposing fan and you want to come and yell at Yordan about banging a trash can, he's not even going to know what you're talking about. Because in 2017, I mean, you should be mad at the Dodgers for trading Yordan Alvarez for What was it? Josh, who, gosh, what was his name? The relief pitcher, long hair, short guy. I can't remember his name
Right.
right now, but like Jordan Alvarez was like not even playing Major League Baseball at the time. A lot of these guys now, a lot of these guys coming up. So those players, I don't think it will affect as much, and I don't think it will have as big an effect on Bregman, on Correa. Correa. I mean, you see what he
Yeah.
does when he gets bucked up against. He doesn't back down.
No, you're absolutely right about that's kind of been his reputation over the years is that's kind of the okay, come on, bring it on kind of personality with stuff like that. So you kind of mentioned it a little bit about the people that are not there anymore. And so this is kind of the some of the major transactions that happened this off season for you guys. Obviously the big loss was George Springer to Toronto. What are their ideas about how they're going to fill that spot and kind of replace his because honestly, some of his tremendous numbers that he put up with Houston.
Yeah, you definitely cannot replace him. You have to almost go back to the Moneyball, like when I remember the scene in Moneyball when Brad Pitt is playing Billy Bean and he's like, we have to replace Johnny Damon,
Oh yeah.
Jason Giambi, but we can't replace him. So we're gonna have to find three players to give the production of this one guy. They're not necessarily having to stretch that far because you got Kyle Tucker, because thankfully we signed Michael Brantley. Here's the thing. Miles Straw is going to be our center fielder going into opening day. Miles Straw is the fastest man in the major leagues. He's going to do everything he can to make a viable center field option. Is he going to replace Springer's bat? Definitely not. But you have Jordan Alvarez back healthy. And hopefully they're going to handle him with kids' gloves. I would be surprised if he played more than 10 games in the field in the beginning, in the first half of the season. Double knee surgery, 22. You want to make him your DH. I don't know. You make him Big Poppy right now. Like, just let him swing the bat.
Right.
Now, we have a kid. That I don't think will impact this roster this year. But Pedro Leon is the real deal. He is in camp. He had some visa issues coming in, but he's here, and I'm hoping to get to see him play. We got Jeremy Pena, who is going to be chomping at the bit. And so, we lost Reddick, we lost Springer. You got Brantley back. You have Kyle Tucker and Miles Straw, and you got guys like Chas McCormick. Steven Souza Jr. hit the first home run of the preseason today. I'm here for the Houston Astros, and he's trying to make it back. He's dealt with a lot of injuries, but Steven Souza Jr. could be a sleeper for a fourth outfielder that could make a good impact.
And so, obviously, Roberto Ozuna, people have their own personal thoughts about him as a person, and that's their kind of prerogative. But you can't deny what he was able to do on the field in that closing spot. Are they able to fill someone in behind, or to replace him, or is it kind of be the same thing where it might be closer by committee at first until someone might have like the hot hand?
So we believe it's going to end up being closer by committee. You see Pedro Baez, Ryan Stanek came in, Steven Cishek, who got shelled today, gave up 3 solo home runs. He actually made the comment. He goes, "I could have given up a home run to my daughter in wiffle ball today. I hit so bad." But right now, as it stands, James Click would tell you, the Astros GM, that Ryan Presley is your closer. And Ryan Presley's even said, "I'm healthier this year than I've ever been. I feel better than I've ever felt." And I haven't been a big advocate of Ryan Presley becoming the closer. You got guys like Anoli Paredes. He's so young. I don't want to pigeonhole him as the closer. But now you have Stanek who throws 103 miles an hour possibly. Cishek has the most saves in his major league career of anybody on this roster. So if he can be a force, you've got Cishek, you've got Stanek, you've got Paredes, and you've got Presley. And it may be closer by committee. But initially, the thought is Ryan Presley is your closer because they didn't get Rosenthal. And I think
Right.
that's why Oakland overpaid for him. Oakland paid a lot of money for one season for him, but I think that was to keep him out of Houston.
So obviously, you see the Michael Brantley re-signed. That seemed like it was kind of touch and go for a while because I believe there was reports almost right after George Springer announced himself siding with Toronto, that I think he was also going to go to Toronto. Brantley, how devastating would that have been if he did, even if it wasn't Toronto, but just left Houston in general?
I mean, that would have been a massive blow because of his 300 plus batting average, his ability to contact hit to all parts of the field, his occasional pop that he shows, just his leadership. I mean, you don't replace two guys like that. I mean, especially with Justin Verlander being out,
Right.
recovering from Tommy John. We interviewed Lance McCullers Jr. on our podcast last night. I would encourage people to go check that out. And he said he was really pissed when he said he knew Springer was leaving. He was happy and sad at the same time. He was happy for Springer and his family, but he was sad that he was gone. And he goes, and then I was pissed. I was like, this is a shitty day because we lost Brantley and Springer the same day. Like, I can't handle this anymore. And then when he found out he was coming back, he said it was like, yes, and so I think the clubhouse morale would have been down if both of those guys would have exited.
And you kind of mentioned it a little bit, and that was Justin Verlander, Tommy John surgery, injured at the end of last season, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
What is his timetable? Is he planning to pitch at some point this season, or is it kind of because I believe his contract's up at the end of this year as well? Has he probably pitched his last, game as an Astro?
He may have. Now he said that if he can come back late in the season for a postseason run, last time he came to Houston. I mean, when he came to Houston, it was in the late part of the year,
Yeah,
and that's when we made the 2017 run. And so I said, hey, 2021 World Series confirmed if Justin Verlander gets here for the playoffs. And I think Justin Verlander, you're going to, he is 37. He is older. So it all depends on how his arm and how his body reacts. Because like Lance McCullers just said, coming back from Tommy John, he said you have to like relearn how to throw.
Yeah.
And he said that's why some guys when they come back better because you get to actually perfect the pitches you struggled with. So I guess I don't know if he comes back. It won't be till late September or October.
So, it kind of mentioned that Tommy John, like we've heard from pitchers from the Angels too. It's like that mental part of it. And Verlander's a veteran, obviously, like you mentioned, 37 years old. So that might not be as big of a part to him, but you obviously have to think of you got to know that when you throw this next fastball, your arm's not going to completely blow out again. You're going to have to kind of build that confidence up. He's not the only big name off the books or potentially off the books for the Astros next season. Correa obviously is probably like the biggest name I would think for you guys. How are the contract talks going? How are they giving any kind of hints to one way or the other how they wanted to get this thing done?
So James Click has kind of sent mixed signals. You've got to think about this first. He came from Tampa. What does Tampa do?
Yeah,
They piece together talent, right? They're not
value.
They're bargain shoppers. They're looking on the Facebook marketplace for the latest talent, right?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, James Click said we want to have enough dry powder. In other words, liquid assets. I had to look that up. I didn't know what dry powder was.
Yeah.
That's actually an investment term. And Carlos Correa has explicitly said, I want this done before April 1st, or I'm not talking until the end of the season. Like, I'm not even going to talk mid-season. So I think it is of utmost priority. Now, Carlos Correa's big linchpin is his injuries and his injury history. And that's what's going to hold him back. But I think Carlos Correa, especially after what he did in the playoffs this last year, is a guy that you want to see here, especially on the heels of losing Springer. You don't want to lose Springer in 2021 and then lose Correa in 2022. And that's a great way to lose a fan base. Correa has become kind of the athlete in Houston where Altuve was there, Harden, he's gone. Watson,
Right.
he's probably out of here. I mean, we've got athletes mass exiting left and right. Carlos Correa embodies that attitude that we feel, that we take it personally. Like if you don't know this, if you don't know the facts, shut the F up kind of,
Right.
And we like, dude, let me tell you, a year and a half ago, trade Correa, he's trash, he's no good. Like people, because of his injuries, and they just were. And but I think all fan bases do that, right?
Oh yeah.
We're all
Mhm.
kind of thick on our own way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and then too, kind of talking about the fan base and you obviously being a fan yourself. Some of these contracts you kind of have to think, okay, what's a good value and what's kind of overpaying? Or is Correa, because he is everything you said, he embodies the city, he is that homegrown talent that obviously grew up through the
yeah,
system. Are you the type that's like give him whatever he wants as long as he stays here, or are you kind of the everything within reason? Like we can't back up the bank or back up the truck for this guy because we got to worry about X, Y, and Z? Or how do you feel as a fan?
as a fan, I think you can offer him a 7-year deal around 208 million, give him about 25 to 27 million. I think if he'd been healthy all these years, especially after his rookie year campaign, you could
Yeah.
easily justify paying him 30 plus. But I don't think he gets more than 27. He probably gets offered between 22 and 25. And I hope the Astros don't insult him by whatever they offer. And James Click did say this the other day. It was kind of a coded, I don't know if it was a coded message. He was like, well, JT Realmuto went on the free agent market and he ended up back with the Phillies. And I'm like,
Oh,
no, I'm like, that's not how we want to think about things.
yeah.
But here's the thing. Carlos Correa, though, is so polarizing. I don't know that he's gonna. I mean, he's talented, right? It's all about the bottom line. Like, who else would really want Carlos Correa? Like, Carlos Correa fits in Houston and nowhere else. So I say pay the guy.
Yeah, and I think what helps too for him staying in Houston is you look at that shortstop class of free agents next year. You have obviously Correa, Lindor. If he doesn't get a job, an extension from the Mets, you got Seager from LA. You got, I believe, Story from Colorado. So, it might be something like you said. Give him a respectable kind of contract offer, and he might be able to see like there's a lot of competition out there. This might be the best thing I can get because of my injury past and like stuff that you mentioned. So that'd be something definitely to check out or kind of keep an eye on as the season goes by.
Yeah, and if I can add one caveat to that, what the Astros do have in their favor if they don't sign Correa is we have this guy named Jeremy Pena. Okay,
Mhm.
have you heard of him? He's pretty darn good. This kid is an absolute stud. We got Fritas Nova on the heels of the major leagues here in a year or two at second base. But Jeremy Pena tore up the Winter Ball League. He was leadoff hitting where he had guys on his team like Nelson Cruz and stuff like that. He actually won the game today. He's got a zero batting average in spring training, but he won with the sacrifice fly to give the Astros a lead in the ninth inning where they beat the Nationals 7-6. So if he does leave, which I would hate to see Correa leave, we've got Jeremy Pena. And if Jeremy Pena comes up and Carlos is still here, I say put him in center field. And if we don't have Pedro Leon, I mean, we've got to find places for these guys or first base.
Right.
I don't care, because I don't know where Gurriel is going to be after this year.
So now kind of moving forward even more so to the 2021 season, what in your opinion are some of the strengths of the Astros and what are some of the weaknesses of the Astros?
Definitely, I think the strength is going to be their offense. I think they are. I think they're picked to be like top 5 in like offensive WAR. That definitely is a strength. Of course, health is a big part of that. Right now, Bregman's dealing with a tweaked hamstring that he tweaked right before spring training. He dealt with that last year a little bit. Yordan Alvarez with his knees. You got to see if he can make it through a full season. So, but I don't think that's necessarily a weakness. I think our weakness is in our bullpen, not in our bullpen's ability to perform, but ability to perform a full season. Jose Urquidy's gone out as a starter and said, I want to do 200 plus innings. Well, he's never pitched more than 154 innings, I think. And so these guys are ambitious. I think our weakness right now at the major league level is probably with our pitching, our lack of depth in the starting end, and just unknowns and how these guys are going to be stretched out over a full season in the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, every team has their I guess can be like the injury can be the weakness point. So that's a good point. That's kind of everybody's weakness. If any team, especially it seems like in this AL West where obviously you guys and Oakland were really competitive last year. If one or the other team
Yeah.
gets a key injury, it can change everything around. Your farm system, you mentioned some names already, but as a whole, how do you feel your farm system is right now as we talk?
Our farm system is not great. Our farm system is probably bottom 50% of the league. We're where we are touted as one of the best systems in the league for several years, and why we got to where we are today. It's been depleted by trades. We emptied the hen house last year in 2020 because we had to. Um, but we've got new talent, Cuban talent, Dominican talent, that we've signed, and the Astros just have this system where we may have limited resources, but the resources we have that are close to the major leagues, and actually 2 seasons away, we've got a few guys to watch out for: Corey Lee, Hunter Brown, and Forrest Whitley. I'll talk about him in your next point, but we've got some kids. We've got some studs that have a bright future. We just don't have a bunch of auxiliary talent, like a bunch of stuff in the coffers. We have
Right.
our pieces, but it's not a stacked piece right now.
Right. Yeah, it seems kind of like almost like a little bit like top heavy. Like you have some guys there about ready to get, and obviously my next thing, like you mentioned, player that can make a debut this season. Forrest Whitley is the guy like right there, right about to make a break into the major leagues. Um, but so let's talk about him for a while. You heard that name for a while. You've seen him. I've seen him down at the Arizona Fall League a couple. Last time they had a couple seasons ago. Like I said, first round pick by the Astros. Is he the top guy coming out this season, you believe, that can make a serious impact on the Astros?
Yeah, I think he's the guy that's the closest because of his experience. And I think it was interesting last year that it was either Brent Strom, maybe it was Dusty Baker, that said heavy is the head that wears the crown. And he said that this kid has had so much pressure on him. I mean, think about it. You're coming up, and I mean, I'm even a baseball card collector. And I mean, I remember when his cards first hit, everybody's like, I got to get Forrest Whitley, I got to get Forrest
Yeah.
Whitley. I don't hear anybody talk about Forrest Whitley cards anymore as much. Like they've gone down in value. Why? Because he hasn't produced. He had the little PED hit, which I think was actually Adderall. It wasn't steroids. Then he's had the issues with his arm, with his delivery. So, but he's saying coming in, he feels better than he's ever felt. And I think this is the season. Like Forrest Whitley proves himself. He either becomes Forrest Whitley and becomes what we thought he was going to be, or he becomes your kind of quadruple A player where he doesn't ever really perform to that level that he was expected. So, and he seems like a good kid to where he really cares about getting out there. And I mean, who wouldn't want to? Like, I mean, who wants to barely make it, right? Who wants to
Right.
almost make it?
Exactly.
So Forrest Whitley is my pick to make his debut this season and make a solid impact.
So, like you mentioned, we just started spring training. I mean, the second games were today as we record. Going into spring training, what is a position battle that you're really interested to see how it play out?
Position battle that I'm interested to see play out is probably going to have to be, I mean, honestly, outfield and who makes our bullpen. Where you've got your guys Stanek, Cishek. I mean, you've got Joe Smith back, which is phenomenal to have him back. Belak struggled today. There are some guys that they signed, and I can't remember all their names. We had a couple guys that each had 2 strikeouts in their frame. Um, you know, we've got this Jose Siri guy. I think the real position battles is going to be for that fourth outfield spot. I don't know if anybody's really battling Miles Straw. Kyle Tucker, for the first time in his career, isn't having to battle for his position. Reddick's not there anymore. Michael Brantley, cemented there. First, second, third, shortstop are all cleaned
Right
up.
there. Yeah.
And then, so I really think it's that fourth outfielder spot. I mean, who knows? There might be a dark horse to come in and take over Miles Straw, but I really doubt it. I mean, he's fast in the major league, so I think he deserves a shot. He only has 199 at bats in his major league career. He only plays every 4 days, so he needs more consistency at the plate to prove himself.
So, and then obviously, I don't like asking people, what do you think your team's going to do this year? Because of the fact, like we were talking earlier, injuries can play a part. You can have a 98 win team on paper, but then 2 injuries happen, 3 injuries happen, and now you're at like 81 and you're at 500. So what I'd like to ask is, whoever wins the AL West, what do you think their record will be?
I think the winner of the AL West will be between 95 and 97 games easily. I think we have two teams in our division, the Rangers and the Mariners. They don't really do much for me. I think the Mariners do more for me just because they got Kyle Lewis. They've got a lot of kids over there with a lot of heart.
Yeah.
Seattle's building something over there. They're not to be scoffed at. You guys. I think you guys in Oakland are going to be battling for that wild card spot. Um, I think first place will have 95, 97 wins. I think second place will have right around 88, 89 wins. I think whoever wins the division will win it by 4 or 5 games total. But that's my pick. That's what I think it'll take.
Yeah, I mean that seems about right from what I'm asking. That kind of 90. I had Martin Gallegos, the A's beat writer, on it. He said 93, 95, somewhere around there. So it looks like
Okay.
a lot of people are in that area. So Brett, I want to thank you again, and I want to give you a chance to go ahead and plug your, like I said, Locked On Astros, and anything else, your social media. So when the
Yeah.
Astros come to town or the Angels go to Houston and they want to kind of get a quick recap of how the team's doing, how do they check you out?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at H-Town Wheelhouse. You can find the show at Locked On Astros. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I also run a Facebook page called Stros 411. Always positive, always Stros. We got about 32,000 followers. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we literally keep up with the Astros every single day. Um, Locked On, we do a great job. Hey, they even have a Locked On Angels
Yeah.
podcast. So Locked On's a massive network. We just got purchased by Tegna Media. We just appeared, and actually in about 4 minutes, our spot goes live on CBS 19 in Tyler, Texas, previewing the Houston Astros for 2021. So we've had some great opportunities. We also have a YouTube channel you can subscribe to. We welcome all fans. And hey, if I could just tell you real quick, I actually went to is it called Edison Field? What is the field called now?
Oh,
Where the
Angel
Angels
Stadium.
play?
It's just Angel
Yeah.
Stadium. Edison International Stadium was, I think they got rid of the name in the, I want to say like mid 2000s.
Okay. Okay. So whenever they redid the ballpark, when they put the mountains and everything in the outfield,
Right, the rocks.
um,
Yeah.
yes, it was a down year for the Angels.
Mhm.
And I remember we were like, hey, we were in town. The Angels were playing. They were playing the Rays, and Billy Hatcher, former Astro, was the first base coach. And I
Right.
think Mo Vaughn was playing for the Rays. I was like, well, I didn't know how to get tickets. Well, I'm not even lying. We bought fifth row tickets behind the Rays dugout for $8 from a homeless guy. I'm not even lying. Like this dude was like, "You want tickets?" And I'm like, "Are they real?" It's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "How much?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Ah, see." He's like, "I just give me $16." And I'm like, "Oh, here's 20. Don't worry about the change." So we get in there and sit down, and the people are like, "Hey, how'd you get those seats?" I'm like, "I know some homeless guy sold them to us." She goes, "How much?" I was like, "I gave him $20." She goes like, "Oh, I told him to sell them for higher so he can get something to eat." And she goes, "We just gave them to him." So we went in there and we did the whole like I act like a complete moron. I did like the whole angels in
Doing
the
the
outfield
outfield
thing,
thing.
and people were looking at me like I was a complete like I was the crackhead. So but I had a great experience, man. Dude, I love that part of California. If y'all are ever in town, hit me up on Twitter. If y'all are ever at a game, let me know. I love to entertain people. Maybe we can get you a brew from Carbach or something like that. Get you some cool Stroh's beer going.
Yeah, I've always wanted to, especially now that the new stadium in Arlington, kind of do a Texas, like, make it kind of almost, because a lot of time when the Astros play at Houston for a stretch, like the next series is a lot of times in Arlington, so you can just literally go for like that Sunday game at one stadium and then
Hmm.
travel with, like, literally drive with the team to the next stadium. So that's always something probably on my baseball bucket list for sure.
Definitely, yeah, definitely, and we'll definitely hit you up if we ever make it out there. I know, how are you guys doing? I mean, are you guys able to move around a lot? I know there's been lockdowns here and there.
Yeah,
How's that going?
it's getting better. It's slowly getting better. From people that I've talked to, it looks like they're selling opening day tickets. In the pods kind of deal. I,
Right.
I I don't see opening day necessarily, but I can definitely see June, July, where people at some capacity are coming back into the stadiums, so it's
Very
slowly
cool.
working its way there. And with a lot of the local counties surrounding Orange County with their numbers dropping, it seems like it's getting a lot better, and more and more stuff is kind of opening up.
That's awesome. And I just want to say, man, mad props to you guys for, man, I love Mike Trout. That guy is so fun to watch. I mean, if he ever wants to become an Astro, I would
Yeah.
not be heartbroken.
I think a lot of teams say that also. If he just wants to work, that's why, going into that free agent year or his last contract year, everyone was thinking like, oh, because he, like you said, he can pick wherever he wanted to go. No one's gonna,
Yeah, I
we'll
thought he
we'll
was
make room
gone.
for him. Yeah, we'll make room
Right.
for him. No big deal. And so when that news happened, and as Angel fans, you're always kind of wondering when it's going to happen, and then literally it happened one morning towards the end of spring training, and it was just like, oh my God, like the clouds opened up and there's a ray of sunshine coming down, and it was just like the happiest day as Angel fans. And then you hear about the length of the contract, you're like, oh, he's not going anywhere for a while. So that even, obviously that made it 10 times better.
So if I can ask you one
Yeah.
question, um, why, like, what is the, like, you guys have all these hitters. Like, what is the
Mhm.
deal with the front office? Not like your your pitching has always been, everyone's like, well, they got Mike Trout, but they don't have pitching, right?
Right.
Like as a fan base, is that like a constant frustration for y'all? Because I
Yeah.
know you've had some guys that you've signed and they've dealt with injuries like Richards and all
Yeah.
those guys, but I don't know. What's the feeling,
I
the
think a
temperature?
lot of it kind of goes back, even to like the Depoto, era, which was what, like 5, 6 years ago, where he was the type of guy that would trade a lot of talent out of the farm system to get like a Zach Greinke that we had for half a season, and then we couldn't re-sign him. So when it came to like developing its own young talent, we just never had any young talent work up its way through system, pitching wise at least, but we had like a Garrett Richards, we had a Tyler Skaggs, guys that were lot of potential, but just for whatever reason here and there didn't work out. Then you look at like kind of the free agency market. Obviously, they took a big run at Garrett Cole last year. But I mean, the contract
Yeah.
he got from New York and just kind of the reports coming out like, oh, he always wanted to play for New York. I think the Angels tried. I just think it was like he had his mind made up, and when that number hit at New York, he was like, yeah, sorry everyone else, I'm going there. And then having the crossover with GMs this season, I think is kind of one of those things where Perry, the GM now, is going to be like, let me kind of not clean house, but you look at the contracts on the books for at the end of this year, literally all you're going to have is Upton for one more year, Trout and Rendon, and
Mm.
everyone else is off the books. So I think that's kind of where they're setting up for is next season, trying to spend more money. I didn't think they wanted to spend a ton of money this year because, again, you're going to have all that money come off the books at the end of this year. So I think lack of development, just not having the young prospects for a while now hurt them. And then when you did get a kind of a promising guy, obviously Garrett Richards and his injury, because with that, I mean, if people remember that year where he was in, he was actually dealing, he was in the top 3 like of Cy Young guys for like the majority of the season. He ends up blowing out a knee in Boston, and he just kind of never was the same. But yeah, I just think honestly, it's just not able to pull the trigger on some of these older veteran, big money kind of pitchers, and we'll see how Garrett Cole kind of pans out. But I think for the most part, they've been wise not to do that. But it's just they just have not developed. I think there's more into the development process where they haven't developed young arms where you can get like a Forrest Whitley and he can come up or something like that.
Right.
So I think as soon as they start getting that kind of production, and there's some guys there that can make some noise maybe next year, then it can be a whole different story. But yeah, I think it's mostly just lack of development for young guys.
I hear you. Y'all just need more Joe Adells, right?
Yeah, exactly. Get some more of those young talent, and even him, he's a high ceiling kind of guy, but super raw coming out of high school, and eventually, if he can come out and play like people think, he's going to be a multi guy, a multi time all-star. Like I don't think it's fair for him. People are trying to compare him to the next Trout. I'm like, you can't do that to a kid.
Yeah.
If he
No.
gets
Mm.
if he gets 5, 6 all-star appearances in his career, that's a great career. He might never win an MVP, but if he can do that, that's still a really good MLB career.
Exactly.
All right, Brett. Thank you again for taking some time out. Again, Locked On Astros. Now that the season's kind of normal, the Astros and the Angels will be playing quite a bit, and so thank you very much for jumping on the All Angels podcast.
Definitely. Thank you. And anytime you need me, let me know. Hit me up. I'd be glad to talk baseball.